guys, I'm Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Nickelodeon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Casey Jones. That's right, Casey Jones has joined the group in Season 2 of the Nickelodeon TMNT cartoon series. And along with that, we get a brand new action figure, so let's check him out. As you can see, he comes on the standard Nick Turtles green and purple blister card packaging that fully showcases the figure right there within the blister bubble. And there's also a little sticker on the front letting you know that he is as seen in the TMNT TV show Season 2. The back of the packaging gives you a brand new bio for the character up top, and the lower portion of the packaging shows off a selection of all of the other figures currently available, which as you can see is growing quite a bit, and we got some new faces down there, such as Razar. Now, just like with April O'Neil in the new Nick Turtles cartoon series, Casey Jones has been aged down, so he's a teenager now, which works good. I'm glad that since they aged down April, they also aged down Casey, because I've always been a big fan of the love interest storyline between those two, and it does make sense to have Casey Jones be about the same age as the Ninja Turtles, so that way he can get along with them just fine. So this here is Casey Jones' brand new look. Now, one thing that Casey Jones has always been known for having is a hockey mask on his face and sort of a hodgepodge of different sports equipment that he uses as all his padding and his costume. And you can see that basically the exact same thing is done in this brand new version of Casey, but there are some changes here. First of all, he does have a hood over his head. In all the past incarnations of Casey Jones, it's always just been his hair showing, but you can see on this particular version, he does have a black hood up over his face. Also, the hockey mask that he's wearing does have some black paint on it that makes it look like a skull. I'm actually okay with this. I think that's a fun little concept to add just a little bit of a new look to the Casey Jones mask while still leaving it a hockey mask. The rest of his outfit you can see is kind of just a mixture of a hooded sweatshirt that he's wearing, along with some brown straps over his chest there. He's got a spiked shoulder pad over his left shoulder there. You can see that both of his hands he's got very large hockey gloves on, and on the left hand he's got this large sort of pad that's got some spikes sticking off of both the front and the top of it. The pad is part of the sculpt, so it's non-removable, and you can see that the brown paint does sort of bleed onto the glove just a little bit there, but not terribly. On the lower portion, you can see that he's got two different types of knee pads over his knees there, and on the bottom of his feet, he does have rollerblades. Now, this is part of the sculpt, and of course, they're not real wheels, it's just solid plastic. And even though he does have those inline skates that are permanently attached to his feet, it is worth noting that he's still very well balanced, so he can pose just fine. He doesn't have any issues toppling over or anything like that, which is very nice. Now, one of the things I will say about this guy is that he's got a lot of great details that are unfortunately unpainted. This has been a common trend on Playmate's Nick Turtles line. Unfortunately, I believe to keep the costs down, we do lose out on a lot of great new paint decos on these figures, which does make them look a little plain. And it really kind of stinks on Casey Jones here because you can see there's lots of little sculpted details like the ring of keys hanging off his right leg. Stuff like that really could have used an added touch of extra paint. Even the little pouch kind of hanging across his chest there, you can see as it comes over to his back, the brown paint job stops and it just turns to black on his back. So it's a bit of a shame to see the lack of painted details on this guy. But like I said, I like all those little sculpted touches. You've got some neat little things like that black handkerchief hanging out of his back pocket, which is really neat. Now let's go back to that mask that's on his face there. Of course, Casey Jones includes a removable hockey mask, so you can pop that right off from underneath the hood, which reveals a face underneath that is painted exactly like the hockey mask that he's wearing. The sculpt you can tell is detailed like his human face, the way he appears in the cartoon series. You can see his hair hanging down kind of almost over his eyes there, but his face is painted white and black in the exact same skull deco that's on his hockey mask. Now, at the point of this review, we haven't seen Casey Jones all dressed up like this in the cartoon series. So I'm not sure if he's going to have his face painted like this all the time, or if this is just sort of a one-time gag that's going to happen in the show. Either way, I find it a little strange that this is the route that was taken for the action figure. I think I much would have rather seen just a normal human face underneath the hockey mask. But I do still appreciate that we can take the mask off. It just has 2 little clips on the side that snaps perfectly underneath that hood, so it's a nice solid fit and you don't have to worry about it falling off his face. Plus, he can even hold it in his hands, which is a really nice touch. Alright, let's go ahead and run down the articulation on this guy. The head's on a joint that allows it to turn left and right. You got great ball joints at the shoulder, so the arms can go upwards, forwards, and backwards. You got a nice standard joint at the elbow, as well as swivels at the wrists, which is a really nice touch. You got a standard swivel at the waist there. Ball joints at the legs, so they can go all the way outwards, forwards, and backwards. You got a standard joint at the knee, as well as swivels right below the knee. However, no articulation in the feet or the ankles. I will say that for the most part, the articulation is really well done on this guy. In fact, it's some of the highest points of articulation we've seen on any of the Nick Turtles figures aside from the Turtles themselves. I think the lack of an ankle articulation point is the only downside. Otherwise, I'm very happy with what we've got here because we can get some good poses out of it, and it's definitely a step in the right direction for this particular line. Now, in addition to that hockey mask, Casey Jones also includes 2 weapon accessories, because where would he be without some cool sports weapons that he can use to beat down on the foot? So first of all, he includes a baseball bat accessory. As you can see, it's just done in a solid white plastic, so it's completely unpainted, but it is kind of sculpted detail there. It's got little wooden lines in the bat, and it's got a little tape wrapped around the handle, and it can fit in either one of his hands just fine. And then, of course, we've got the signature weapon in the hockey stick. Again, same solid white plastic, no painted detail, which is a bit of a bummer, but again, standard for this particular lineup. And it does have some nice sculpted details like the tape wrapped around the end of the hockey stick there. And he can hold it in either one of his hands, and because of his awesome articulation, you can get some good two-handed poses. It's really fun finding different ways to kind of match him up with his weapons here to get some great stances and some fighting poses. And you can even get him holding both weapons at the same time, which is really nice. And of course, when he's not holding those weapons in his hands, he does have a piece on his back that will allow you to store both the baseball bat and the hockey stick at the same time. You've got one hole specifically sized for the bat and another one specifically sized for the hockey stick, and they both snap right in there very nice and tight, so that way you can store the weapons on his back and you don't have to worry about them falling out. Alright guys, it's comparison time! Here's a look at the brand new Nick version of Casey Jones, standing alongside some of his previous action figure incarnations, including the vintage action figure, the Ninja Turtles 3 action figure, and the 2003 Casey Jones, which is my personal favorite to this day. So there you go guys, there's a look at the brand new Casey Jones figure from Nickelodeon's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toy line. I've always been a big fan of Casey Jones. In fact, along with Raphael, he's one of my favorite characters from the Ninja Turtles lore. So I was really happy to see him show up in the new cartoon series, and I'm very anxious to see how the character plays out in the new cartoon series. Overall, I really like this figure. I think it's really well done. The biggest downsides, of course, are the lack of paint details, but that has been a common theme across this entire line, and maybe a joint at the ankles would have been nice, but like I said, the articulation is definitely moving in the right direction. The biggest downside for me is the skull paint on his face. If we would have had a normal human face underneath that hockey mask, I think I would have liked him even more. But as is, I do still really like this guy, and hey, who's to say we won't get other versions of Casey Jones in action figure form down the road? So the Nickelodeon version of Casey Jones should be hitting store shelves very soon, so happy hunting, and until next time.